Hi, I'm Chris Montoya, and I sell houses. And this is Steve, and he actually physically sells pieces of Colorado. Hey, Steve, how you doing today?
Great. How are you doing today?
You know what? It's a beautiful day in Canon City. I can't complain at all.
I can't either.
So let's talk a little bit about your business over here at J&J Minerals. What's our store location?
517 Main Street, Canon City, Colorado.
Okay, let's get right into it. Do you mind if I ask you a question? How
Sure.
did you get into rock hounding?
Well, it's been in our family for over 150 years. And when you've got a grandmother that is a geologist, a dad that's a geologist, grandfathers that were gemologists, archaeologists, you can't get away from it.
So it kind of came by naturally.
Naturally.
Huh? That's very cool. So what do you have right there, and what's the significance of that piece?
This piece right here is Colorado Amethyst. It came out of Cotopaxi. This was found, well, I'm 61 years old, so 58 years ago, this was found by me.
So that's what got you hooked, huh?
This is what got me hooked. But what really got me hooked into this business is going to my grandmother's cabinets. When I would go visit her, I would ooh and goggle at her cabinets. And that was at age 3. And then at age 5, my grandmother told me this world-class amethyst was over in Cotopaxi, but she never could find it. The elements, the compounds, everything is in that area. Well, my dad told me, son, you help her. So we went over. I spent a lot of time over there, but we found it. This is not the very first piece that was found. The very first piece is on my poster. It is in the Natural Museum in Denver, Colorado. This is number 2 piece in my hand. But there was a piece that's 3 foot wide, 6 foot long, 144 amethyst on it. And of course that was sold to a museum.
So is it fair to say that Canon City, if you were a rock hound or you love geology, would be one of the best places to be?
Yes, sir. Colorado, I can collect 14,000 minerals in the state of Colorado.
Wow.
My grandmother, Effie Hayes, and all them came from Boston to Colorado because she was a teacher in Boston. She read up on Colorado and found out this is the hub of the Mineral Society.
Ah.
So here she came. 1927, they packed up and they came out here.
So tell me a little bit about more locally, Fremont County. If you were going to be a rock hound in Fremont County, what would you do? Where would you kind of go? Where was your favorite place to kind of...
The thing about Fremont County is you got to see this is ocean, was the ocean. So this is all fossils, 90%. But then you had the volcanics that nobody saw because it's underwater. Then, of course, it receded out. We had the glaciers come through. We had the uplifts, the tectonic plates moving. My number 1 place, and let me declare it, you cannot collect dinosaur bones, anything to do with dinosaur in Fremont County. Actually,
you can't collect it, but they're all over the place, right?
You can go up in Red Canyon. That's my number 1 place. I remember that when I was a little boy because we'd go up there in Felch's Gulch. We would dig the Colorado geodes out of there. We would dig Pyrite, we'd dig alabaster, red agate, which is very rare, and carnelian agate up there, which is very, very rare. My grandmother found 1 big piece, but we found probably 40 pieces in 50 years.
Wow.
So that tells you it's far and in between.
But also there's stuff out there, there's things to be found. So what's the most common thing a guy could expect to run into that's really cool to see?
Here in Canon City, if you go off of the hogbacks over here, off of Skyline Drive, I don't care, Eco Park, any place, you're going to find fossils. But the number 1 thing is selenite. You're going to find selenite everywhere in this area. But the value of it is zilch.
But still, it's cool to see.
It's cool to see.
Yeah.
If you believe in the metaphysical part of this world, that's one of your metaphysical stones you should have.
Very cool. So I see this piece, and honestly, it caught my eye when I came in. Can you tell me about it, and can you tell me if it was locally sourced?
This here is a local sourced gem. We do in the state of Colorado we can collect all the gemstones of the birthstones except one, and that's Alexandrite. We cannot because we don't have it here.
So what's that?
This is an aquamarine. This is March birthstone.
I'm a March baby.
And this is off of Mount Ontario is where this comes from. Then we have, I do not cut no more because my hands don't work like they should anymore. But there's other gentlemen here in Canon City that does all this cutting. One of them is Jack Woolsey. He's the one that cut this one. He's the one that set this one. This one was collected probably 2006 is when this crystal was. But when we cut it, see the size of it. When we cut this, you're losing 60% of the stone. So imagine add 60% how big that was.
That was big and beautiful.
So if you want to compare it, this is a Colorado topaz up by Terriol. This size is what that started out to be almost.
Wow. And it takes a special eye to see how to cut those gems, I can imagine.
Correct.
Yeah.
You got to be, there's colleges and places where you have to go get trained and all. Mm-hmm. Of course, Jack was trained by the best man in Colorado, Mr. Walt Rybach, and he lived in Colorado Springs, owned the Colorado topaz quarry that this one came out of. He's the one that taught Jack how to do all the cutting and everything.
So one last quick question, and not this one because I know this one has a special place in your heart.
Very special place in my heart.
But if you had to pick like your favorite, I just get joy every time I see this one thing. What would that be?
I hate to say it, it's Amethyst. Amethyst gets my heart pounding when I locate it. Mm-hmm. Of course, on Highway 9, it's called the New Hope Amethyst Mine. Mm-hmm. The Geology Club here in Canon City owns it. So you can go in there if you belong to the club. Well, we were out exploring over in Copper Gulch area, mm-hmm. and we found another deposit of it. 2 months ago, up on High Park Road, we found another deposit.
That's very cool.
So that's telling you it's still out there. Mm-hmm. You just got to go find it. I tell everybody, number one thing to do this business, read every book you can find on it. On your minerals, your formations, the volcanic, everything like that. And that helps you kind of locate where it should be. It's not always going to be there.
Yeah, because, if it was going to be there every single time, it had already been discovered, somebody already figured it out. And that's the beauty of it. And actually, the cool thing about Canon City being undiscovered, what's your favorite thing going on in Canon City right now?
Right now...
Fremont County.
Well, yeah, the Fremont County part of it and everything. I would have to say my favorite is locating topazes.
So
after a forest fire happened up by Coaldale, it opened up that whole entire mountain, mm-hmm. which was Hayden Pass fire. Mm-hmm. And the two firemen were in there, and they've seen these pretty rocks on the ground, so they picked them up and brought them down to me. Well, they are topaz.
That's
so
cool.
That tells us there's topaz there besides Terriol, Divide, mm-hmm. Lake George. So it's localizing us.
Yeah.
But the number one thing, it used to be called Curio Hill. I remember digging that when I was about 4, 5, 6 years old with my dad, my grandmother, my grandfather, all of us. Beautiful banded agate. Well, problem is, you can't get to it now because there's private land and the private landowner will not let us cross. Mm. So it's done.
Yeah. So we're at the part of the interview where you get to ask me one question.
Okay, the one question I got to ask you, what is your opinion? Is Canon City going to come back for the downtown people and help?
So here's what I think, and this is what I've noticed. And because I talk to a lot of small businesses, and we talked about a lot of things. And one of the things I've noticed is the city of Canon City, especially the downtown area, has really banded together to grow Canon City. I see businesses, buildings getting bought up. You hear a lot of what we're doing is growing Canon City. Canon City's growing with people, Canon City's growing in size, and honestly, this particular city council and this particular group has been very, very strong and a very strong advocate and friends of the downtown area, friends of the building community, friends of the community, where sometimes you couldn't have always said that, but I would say now it really feels that way. I really feel like we're heading in the right direction. I do want to share one quick story, and I was hoping you'd go here, but I want to talk about my experience with minerals when I was a child.
Okay.
So we lived on a ditch. Like our house had ditch share, and that's very common in our area. And so our ditch ran through the yard. And so this ditch, it would always uncover fool's gold.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, as a kid, I was like, oh my gosh, because you pick up the mud and you see all the flecks. And my dad was like, I was like, I think we have gold. And it was gold in our ditch, of course. And of course, it's not gold, it was iron pyrite. But it really got me excited about like all the geological things in our community. And that's what I was like, oh man, I just really love this.
Right. Well, getting on to iron pyrite, there's multi pieces of pyrite. You've got chalcopyrite, which is non-magnetic. Iron pyrite, a magnet sticks to it.
Oh.
So there, and then there's a limonite after pyrite. There's so many pyrites around this area, but the Arkansas River brings so much material, and I know all of our water comes out of that Arkansas River because we used to live in Lincoln Park and our ditch shares. But a lot of people walk to the bank and see all that stuff down there is glitter and looks like gold.
Yeah.
So the first thing they do is they bring a bucket in and says, look at all this gold I found. Well, yes and no. There is gold in there, but it's flour. You can't even hardly see it. But the majority of that is called mica. There's 5 types of mica. That one in the river is a biotite and a muscovite. And then when you add those two together, it gives it a little gold tint. So, but that stuff floats.
Yeah, so that's probably what I was finding. And honestly, my dad wasn't a geology guy, so he just said it's fool's gold. And so, hey, I really appreciate the chance to talk to a true expert in the field, man. It was a pleasure talking to you.
It was a pleasure talking to you. I'm glad you guys stopped by.
Thanks, guys.
Chris Montoya.